I'm Richard Hooper and this is SatTV Week. Now I'm pleased to be joined by Bert Sadtler of Boxwood Strategies. Bert, thank you for joining us. We've spoken many times before. The hiring process, recruitment process, what's working, what isn't?
Hi Richard, nice to be here. And I think the key word is process. I look at hiring today as taking one of two roles, one of two roads. One is more casual and one is more formal. The casual is let's see who we can bring in and we'll figure it out after we've hired them. Or let's hire somebody and pay the recruiting resource when and only when they get hired. That's a casual approach because if it doesn't work out, that recruiting resource goes and works and does something somewhere else. It's a casual process because casual effort with lack of planning and lack of process is at the beginning of it, and then it's let's hope it works and let's see how this person works out once they get hired. The alternative version, which takes a lot more effort, is a formal process. And the formal process says, let's develop a process that works, let's define it. The most important question is, what is the business problem that the person we're going to hire is going to solve? In my opinion, a business has got to be able to answer that question before hiring anyone. That's where a process should begin. I hear and see a lot of things today regarding today's broken hiring process, and it starts with, are you going to be casual or are you going to be formal?
Taking that all into account, sometimes it just comes down to the size of the company and the cost of moving down the formal process. How do you explain to companies that you might have to spend some money, but you are going to get a far better result at the end of it?
I think it is more about what do you want to be doing? If you're going to hire somebody, you're going to be spending money anyway. Do you have enough money to effectively bring this person in and support them and ensure it's going to work? The alternative is, if you do it casually, if you just throw it against the wall, well, what's the cost of a failed hire? And if you're thinking about total cost of a failed hire is significant. You've got to start all over. You have said to the other people who work for your organization, we really don't know what we're doing. This didn't work. Are you even sure you want to work here? So there isn't free. And in business, are you making an investment or are you just casually throwing money out there?
Well, even when you go down the formal process and you throw money out there, you're not always going to get the right person doing the recruitment for you. So let's be honest, what makes you so special?
I wouldn't want to use the word special. I would prefer to use the word different. And I prefer to think of what I do as different is I'm not a headhunter, don't even like that word. I look at what I do as being a consulting recruiter. And my approach to it is my client and I, the business leader, the business owner, are going to be partners. We're going to be aligned with the same goal, to get it right. And in my model, my fee is not based upon how much the person being hired is going to make, because that would incent me to find the most expensive, make the most, and have my client pay the most. And that's not in the alignment of what a client wants to do. A hiring manager wants to get the best value. So my model is I'm a fixed fee, flat fee consultant, and once that's agreed to, my client and I are committed to getting it right. And in the event I come up with a candidate who I think is worth more, I'm making a recommendation that they get paid more for the sole purpose of getting it right. At the same time, it doesn't mean the most expensive person is the best fit. In some cases, a lesser expensive person can be an excellent fit. And in my model, I'm just as incented to find someone who's a lower cost in order to get it right.
But as a consultant, Bert, once you have got the right person and the company's taken on that right person, how do you keep them? It's high churn at the moment. People move, they're offered better things, maybe not a better job, but they move. How do you incentivize a company and the company incentivize their recruit?
So you're really covering a couple of areas. One of those areas you're talking about has to do with retention. So I'm going to touch on that for a moment and then come back to the original question. Retention, I think, has evolved. There was a time when you and I were much younger when retention meant somebody was with an organization for 15 or 20 or 30 years. Statistically, that's just not realistic any longer. Usually people are with an organization 3, 4, 5 years. There's a lot more turnover. Retention needs to be redefined. In my opinion, retention now relates to the relationship that an employer has with that individual. And think about it. If an individual was terrific and they left an organization because they were so good, they were sought out for a better opportunity, and their career could advance, and the relationship between them and their employer was retained, they could, in theory, be worth a lot to their ex-employer in developing business, in opening up doors, in lots of ways. And in that regard, the retaining of the relationship is critical. Now, with respect to getting a recruitment engagement right, I look at the process that Boxwood implements as once the candidate is a little bit further in and starts to go have a meeting, not an interview, with the hiring manager, the candidate's responsibility is to get information and ask questions. So when they come out of that, they're starting to put together their initial plan of action. What are they going to do in their first 6 months? And in that process, they review that plan of action with their hiring manager. They're collaborating, pretty much like what you do in a business event. And in that process, that hiring manager and that candidate are taking that plan of action and becoming committed to it. Now, in human beings, when we are committed to something, we tend to stick to it. And in that setting, the plan of action that an employer and the new employee have committed to has a high probability of working out. So when we talk about bringing in a new hire and having it work out, if there has been a process and the time's been spent and the candidate and the hiring manager are on the same page and they are committed, I don't know a better way for the newly hired candidate and newly hired employee to be on a path of success than for those steps to be in place. And that's the process that Boxwood implements.
Well, Bert, as always, interesting. Thank you for talking to us.
My pleasure, Richard.